So the other project I've been working on, and I've been kind of interleaving these two when one is slows down, is this Olmsted Hub. This is up on the Upper West Side. It's adjacent to the park. It's on a full building complex. It's a single 400-unit building among a complex of 3 additional 400-unit buildings. They have a parking lot in between, so they own the land between them. The hope is that we finish this one building, and then the other 3 buildings want service as well, in which case we could have 1,600 units on a single fiber link that we're paying for to connect to a data center. But we'll get to that later. This is another site where we're trying something new in terms of 10 gigabit fiber to the home. The idea is that we have a 40 gigabit link to a data center, and then that 40 gigabit link can be shared among the members of the building and hopefully the entire site at some point in time. This is an interesting building as well because it's 400 units, but in 2 200-unit towers that are separated by a firewall. So it's one physical building, but they actually have 2 separate stairwells, 2 separate sets of egress. They actually have to be treated as 2 separate buildings other than the basement hallway. So that's been a fun challenge. In terms of progress, we've been working on this, I think the first time I was there was in February. So it's kind of been a long process since then. The initial goal was to get a single floor wired up for fiber. And since the last time I updated in August, I was able to get a budget approval to roll out fiber to the rest of the building. So that's 20 floors in the East Wing and 20 floors in the West Wing. And yeah, that went well. And we started installing that and actually getting everything physically plugged in. So the things on screen, the leftmost image is a patch box. We found that it was extremely tedious to run cable along the basement hallway. So the fix was to run a single 12-strand cable with 12 strands of fiber inside a single cable to make it a little bit easier. Do that once, and then break that out into the individual cables that then go up to all the different floors. You may note only 12 strands, but aren't there supposed to be 20 floors? The idea here is that we're going to have patch boxes every other floor and then patch into those. The next picture in the middle is actually doing a test of one of the fibers in one of the floors. So this is the active floor right now, the test floor, floor 15. So it's got a couple extra fibers, and it's actually got a couple Mesh members actively using the service. So that's very exciting. We're trying to validate and make sure that the fiber is actually working after every single time we pull cables, and I guess have the opportunity to damage a cable that's already there. Thankfully, that doesn't seem to have happened. Everything has at least some sort of signal. I think there might be some bends that I need to go back and try and fix, but we'll get to that later. And then the rightmost picture is actually running the single 12-strand cable along the basement hallway. So it's a 120-foot fish tape that we had to run and kind of worm its way through the yellow flexible interduct and then pull that back. Next photo is of the West Wing. So East Wing and West Wing were very similar, but the West Wing, we did home runs all the way back to the server rack, which meant every single cable had to actually go through 50 feet of the hallway interduct, which was kind of the hardest part. We can see in the leftmost photo, we're running 2 cables at once because we wanted to have 2 cables and a pull line. That's what those 3 piles are. The idea being we'll have a couple spare fibers that are already run. So if anything breaks for any reason or we need extra capacity in a given area, we'll be able to just pull the extra fiber down and install it there. In the middle is Doug pulling down on the fiber and the pull line to try and get it down to the intermediate point. And then from there, we have to pull out 50, 75 feet of slack and then run that along the basement hallway. And you can see Scott and Doug in the rightmost photo actually doing that final part of the pull through the yellow interduct. Thank you, Scott. Okay, next setup. Thanks to Zach for this. We have a dark fiber lease connecting this building all the way to 325 Hudson Street in Lower Manhattan. So that is a data center where we're paying for rack space, and we're also getting, I think, a donated link out to the internet. So the idea here is that we have a set of fibers that gives us a 40 gigabit link between the data center and our apartment building. And over the past couple months, we've actually gotten access to our rack and gotten everything plugged in. We were able to get the fiber plugged in at both ends and actually establish a connection first try. Very exciting. And then the top right is Andrew's Node Explorer website, where we can actually see that everything is meshing as it should, in the sense that is that right? Yeah, that the SN11 and the bottom right corner of that graph is actually connecting through Olmsted all the way back through CCNY up in Harlem, and then from there to SN3, which is our current exit to the internet. So eventually we'll have the SN11 325 Hudson internet link turned on, and then that'll be its own exit to the internet. Questions about this? I've got a question in the back. Sure, I'll repeat the question. Why? I'm not there to repeat it. Cool. Daniel says this is awesome. Next thing we started working on was access points around the building to try and get NYC Mesh Community Wi-Fi around all the common areas, because this building has a ridiculous amount of common areas. It's got parking lot in the back. It's got a little playground and a seating area in the back. It's got laundry room, music room, gym, training room, common area, so much stuff. So we ended up deploying, I think, 6 access points around the various places, public spaces in the building, and then there's a little bit of carryover from the 3 access points that were already there. We tried to do home runs and then use these hex PoE network switches, which will break out power over Ethernet. So with a single cable, we can actually power and run data to 4 access points at once with a single cable. So very exciting there. And everything's been working fine so far. I think we've seen 10 people connected to the Wi-Fi at any one point in time, and the network switch that we installed at the beginning of the project has been able to handle all the power without issue, so everything's been working fine there. The door people that work in the building also were using their hotspots before this for, internet or whatever they needed, so they're very excited about the Wi-Fi now. In terms of what's next, we need to actually get into the building and start getting people to fill out our join form, and then we can schedule installs with them. We need to go back and fix a couple things on the floors in terms of weak signal or increasing increasing the signal strength, mounting the patch panels, that sort of thing. And then, a lot of cable labeling and just general tidying, because it was a mad rush to try and get this done. So that's kind of where we're at. And bigger list of people, because it's been all this year. But yes, thank you to everyone for helping out on this project. That's it. Any questions? Yes.
I would echo Daniel's comments here that this is incredible. It's also worth mentioning that this is, 99.9% done with volunteer labor, which is honestly incredible. So John has probably spent about 1,000 hours on it this year, but you can see in the pictures there that lots and lots of other people have helped. So really, really incredible. I think we've also learned a ton about how to do big buildings and especially how to scope these projects well, right? Because, you've run into probably 100 challenges that no one even thought of. And now I think we're going to have a really good kind of template and SOPs for doing this the right way and scoping contractor work and whatnot. So amazing.
Thanks.
All right, I got 2 for you. The west wing is the wing with the home runs back to the rack. If you had to do this project again, would you use an MPO there too?
I'm not necessarily sure I would reuse I don't know if I would reuse the 12-strand cable, because it is an expensive way to do it. I might just choose a different form of conduit that isn't as flexible and that a fish tape runs more easily through. We also found out a little bit late in the process, because this was interleaved with our issues at SN1 and the cable pulls, that cable lubricant makes everything a huge amount easier, and maybe we should use that here as well. We started doing it partway through and it made things easier, so yeah.
And the second question is on the hex PoEs, you're powering those all the way, like you're doing Ethernet all the way back to the rack, and you're powering them from the PoE switch in the rack?
That's right. The PoE switch in the rack does 30 watts per port, powers along a 200-foot cable to the hex PoE, and then from there, it'll go and power each of the different access points.
Also, third, everyone, that this is a really cool project. I was wondering if you could talk about the process of reaching out to the building and how that went to pick a big building. And I was really surprised when we worked together. You were explaining that like you're doing it all for free, but like you're hooking them up so because they kind of hook you up as having like a center. But yeah, so like any like how you approach them, like if anything was unexpected coming up with communication, because I feel like there's just like probably some unexpected like contractual things since this is so unique.
Yeah, this is an interesting question that I have had nothing to do with. Yeah, I came in when we started needing to design the infrastructure, and I think Brian handled most of the, I guess, the contract signing and negotiation with the building and all of the additional outreach. I don't know how any of that worked. So I don't know, Brian, if you want to come up here and talk about any of that at all in terms of the process of reaching out to Olmsted or Olmsted reaching out and finding out how to get this working. I have nothing to say, so I'll give my mic up.
This all started with there's a link on the website from our homepage to building, and people were approaching us from that. And it's the deal is if they can get 50 apartments interested, then we'll pay for doing the backhaul on the building. And I think it's an expensive process. I think we need to revise it a little bit. But it took me many years to come up with this idea because I've been to so many co-op board meetings, and as soon as you start mentioning a price, then they lose interest. If you can present them with something that costs the board nothing, but the individual apartments pay for their share of the install, then it's really easy to get it passed by the board. But yeah, as soon as you mention any cost at all, any dollar number, then it has to go through a whole process on the board, and it just won't be approved.
Julie, did that answer all your questions, or do you have any follow-up?
Just a bit, like, yeah, I guess was there. So, but so the building.
No.
No,
Yeah. And for reference, this was $25,000 worth of equipment. And that all the volunteer labor, obviously, $0.
That each apartment will pay $290 to connect, and then a 20 or 30 a month donation.
Mm-hmm. Was there any hesitation in the building to let access, or like any reasons that they didn't want it?
As I was saying, the co-op's main thing is to not spend money. They're bought.
Yeah.
As long as you can come to them with something that benefits the people that live there, which doesn't cost the board any money, then it'll get approved.
They.
June, I think you had a question, right?
Hey there, just kind of curious. Did you run into any expected or unexpected resiliency challenges in this setup?
Any unexpected what? Sorry.
Resiliency, redundancy challenges or whatnot?
Nothing yet.
That's good.
Yeah, the spare fibers I think have been helpful because we already broke one and we had a second one ready to go. So we don't have to actually bring a splicer up there and fix the cable wide in order to get the floor online. So I guess that's one example.
Hope it holds that way.
Yeah, hopefully so. In terms of the roof, I guess it was useful to have two separate uplinks to CCNY. That was during our initial rollover phase. We had a 5 gigahertz light beam and a 60 gigahertz wave LR. And while we were tweaking the wave LR, or while we were getting the wave LR installed, it didn't actually make a connection when we hoped it would. So the backup link was able to take the traffic in the meantime, and we were able to see both sides and then work on things until the high bandwidth link was in place. Yeah. Cool. Other questions? All right. I think we're good. Thank you, everyone. Next presentation is MethDB, right?
Wonderful. They haven't forget.